broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Houston, Texas. It's time for Houston Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hello, Houston. Trisha Stetzel here, bringing you another episode of Houston Business Radio. I'm so excited to welcome today's guest, Drasko Raicevic. I'm good, right?
You're
Yes,
good.
I'm
You're
so
good.
good at this. The owner and head coach behind Peacefully Ambitious CEO up in Toronto. Drasko has helped more than 250 founders and CEOs do something most entrepreneurs never figure out, actually enjoy their success. He teaches leaders how to turn the stress that's quietly draining their time, energy, and profits into what he calls peaceful fuel so they can grow their business without burning out. Today, we're digging into why so many of us hit revenue ceilings, why strategy alone won't fix it, and how to create peaceful, joyful profit, the kind that funds your ideal life. Drasko, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm super excited to be here and dive into all of this.
Oh, yes. And you do so many things too. So I want to touch on a little bit of that. But first, let's dive into who you are and a little bit more about Peacefully Ambitious and why you started this work in the first place.
Yeah. So, this started in many ways out of a crash. So I owned a brick and mortar weight loss center for 10 years. And that business was great on paper, right? Had a great training systems as far as like team was concerned. My team was killing it. We had great results for clients. And like I said, everything on paper about that business was great. And then it imploded January 2020. So literally right before COVID started, which was a blessing in disguise. But it was like literally 10 years to the month that I registered my business. And it imploded because I didn't know it at the time, but I was basically using that business as a proxy for my own self-worth. So I started making, bad decision after bad decision, throwing good money after bad, and basically sabotaging everything that I had built. So that crash forced me to begin to reevaluate, like, how is it that everything, and I had like consultants and people come in to like look at it like, hey, your numbers look great, just do more of it, right? And it was just horrible advice. And that crash forced me to like look at, okay, what is it that I missed? And a lot of it came down to blind spots in my emotions, blind spots in my regulation as far as like my nervous system is concerned. Like essentially, the way that I describe it now in hindsight is I was driven by stress to try and succeed so I can prove my own worth, right? And that's kind of the essence of what I do now, which is so many entrepreneurs are driven by stress to succeed. Maybe not for the same reasons I was, but that's very common. And I help them turn that around, just like I helped it within myself to reinvent and be like, no, that you have to peacefully fuel to create something that you ultimately want to experience, right? And I see business as the vehicle through which they can create what I call like the life that money can't buy. Like money can buy you the resources, it can buy you the team, it can buy you, the freedom of time, but it can't buy you the enjoyment and the, guilt-free version of that time. So basically that's a long story short of like how Peacefully Ambitious CEO came to be.
That's beautiful. And what a great story. Not everyone, most are successful 99.9% of the time. We have to go learn lessons through failure so that we can really find the thing that drives us, right? And the thing that we want to do for others that are out there. So you talked about the stress and the burnout and how that can really turn into challenges inside of the business, right? Because as entrepreneurs, our life is our business most of the time. That's what we're living, right? So where does that, so there's burnout and we know the word, and I think we use that word a lot, but what does that actually mean? I mean, the unhappiness that comes from that drive or that internal stress to do the next thing, to be the best. Can you kind of wrap all of that up and help us understand a little bit more why those things happen and
Yeah,
create?
100%. So I think the way to give that answer the most value is to kind of break it down into the layers of what actually amounts to the experience that we call burnout, right? So on like the basic layer of what you're experiencing day to day, when you are driven by stress, right? And there's 64 stress drivers that are unique to entrepreneurs that I assess in, my process. So whichever combination of those 64 are negatively impacting your delegation, your productivity, your peace of mind, they will eventually translate into what I call profit and time leaks. Okay. And these profit and time leaks, like these aren't going to be items on your P&L statement that you're going to find, but you're going to feel them in terms of compensations, right? So a common thing that happens is, so let's say I have an entrepreneur that got to where they got to, that they're successful because they just outworked everybody. They just, that whole hustle and grind thing, which fundamentally I don't have anything against except when it works against you. So we'll get to that. But you work really hard, okay? And simultaneously, you also have people-pleasing patterns. Okay, so what tends to happen? Well, number one, you have a very hard time delegating because if you were to let go of doing all of the things, that fundamentally goes against this identity piece, what's like, I get significance and I'm important and I get value out of doing all of the things. So to let that go is actually a threat to your subconscious identity, right? So that's kind of this stress driver that's now creating this compensation where I'm doing things that I know I shouldn't be doing, but I'm doing them anyway. And you couple that with another very common thing, which is, all of us go into business with these kind of latent people pleasing patterns. It's like, oh, now I also have trouble calling out underperformance and, confronting clients, vendors, whoever. Well, that starts to compound into you compensating for a lack of performance, which you do actually pay for, but you don't see where those leaks are, again, on your P&L statement. And then usually you wait until things get really dire and something crashes to like actually address and say the thing, right? So now if we're looking at this as like medical triage, it's like you're already bleeding out and trying to figure out like, why am I not healthy? Well, it's like we got to plug the leaks first, right? So that's like the first layer where you're existing in a stress-driven like view to succeed while you're constantly putting out these fires that are really not like necessary stresses of doing something hard like building a business, which has its own stresses for sure. But these compensations are the unnecessary stresses that get created by essentially the drama that we build into it, right? So now how does this relate to burnout? So number one, a lot of your time is spent managing the profit and time leaks that happen in your business. Two, you are now bringing that into your life because like you said, your life is very inseparable from your business. So that's now starting to affect your family. It's starting to affect your relationships, starting to affect the presence that you have, with yourself. It's starting to affect the self-image you have with yourself. So now you might get into compensations as far as your own personal things. So I'll start to drink a little bit more. I'll start to zone out and watch Netflix unnecessarily, right? I'll start to eat unhealthy. So they're going to manifest as, in this instance, kind of like identity and, lifestyle leaks, if you want to call it that. So now I got this compounding, what I call hamster wheel of overwhelm, right? Which basically now means like I just don't have the capacity to actually grow beyond this, right? That's kind of where the plateau piece comes into play. So you bring all of that together, the general solution that most entrepreneurs will opt for when they do this, right? And I assess for this as well. I call these like out patterns. Like, how do I get out of the problems that I'm experiencing? Most entrepreneurs will try to outwork them. So you're trying to add more of this thing that got you into the problem in the first place. Eventually, you are going to burn out either physically, mentally, and emotionally, right? So that's kind of the soup that creates what we experience as burnout. And if you're kind of listening to this and you're looking at, okay, well, how do I get like out of this, et cetera? It's like, or is this avoidable? Which is often kind of the question that comes up. It's like, there's a lot of people that get a lot of things done, but they don't burn out. So burnout is not reflective of the output that you do. It's reflective of the load that you carry while you do the work, right? And everything I described, those profit and time leaks, those lifestyle leaks, like that's all the extra unnecessary load that you don't need to climb the mountain of entrepreneurship. Like it's hard on its own as it is. You don't need to add the extra weight to make that climb, right? So it's the extra weight that essentially leads to the experience of the burnout. Okay. So I think that answers your question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the whole idea of the hamster wheel, and I'm thinking about the founder's trap, where the owner is doing everything in the business. They're wearing multiple hats. They're sweeping the floors. They're changing the trash can liners. They're also selling. They're also fill in the blank, right? Marketing, etc. And it's a hard place to be as a solo owner or even as an owner with a small team. Even with a big team, it can happen. So, one, first question that comes to mind is how do we identify that we're in that space so that we can take action to get out of it? And then the second part of that is why do we get there in the first place? Why is it that most of us feel like we have to work 80 hours a week to support our business versus stepping back and really creating this vision on how do we get to 40 hours a week using our team or the resources that we have in front of us. So, thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the first place to start is looking at like, okay, so how do I know whether or not like I'm in this place? Because the tricky thing about burnout as I described it, it's like you'll kind of nod your head and be like, yeah, but like that's kind of like not me, right? Until something crashes. It's I always say like you're always going to lose to biology. So like if you're carrying all of this stress, eventually something is going to crash internally, and hopefully you don't get to that point, or you crash like I did, and it's like that's the wake up call, right? So the hard part is I'm in the middle of it, but I don't understand it because it's my day to day experience. So like, how do I know? Is this actually me? So that's why I always say you don't look necessarily at yourself because you are a bad gauge of yourself. And I don't mean that in any disparaging way. I just mean like it's hard to see the building when you're standing on the balcony, right? This is why like having a third party, having a coach, having somebody to reflect back to you is so valuable because you're in the thick of it. So you don't necessarily like you're not the most unbiased decision maker in that way. So that was standing, okay, how do I actually know? So I basically I look at three situations that you can actually point to inside of your business that will likely point to some of these factors being at play. So number one is the actual plateau. So if you've been at a plateau that you can't seem to break, that's always an indicator of that cliche of like, what got you here won't get you there, right? So who I am fundamentally as the leader, as the CEO of this organization, of this business, worked because I got the success that I have, but who I am now is not who I need to be to take it to the next level because I've actively been trying. And this is especially true if you've already invested in like, business coaching and strategy and have gotten consultants, et cetera. Like if you know all of the things, but I can't show it, okay, so that's a good indicator that what we have here is an inherent identity issue, not a strategic issue, right? So number one is the plateau. Number two is, am I trapped in miserable success? So do I, on the outside, and people constantly tell me, hey, you're so lucky, this is so great, you must love it. And it's like I have the evidence that, okay, like I have success, I have the things, but like, why do I feel so empty on the inside? Right? It's like the idea of more, like to grow, just overwhelms me. Okay, well, unlike the other one where it's kind of you stopped growing, here you grew and grew and grew, and what you created is now your own prison. It's kind of the opposite of what you probably wanted when you started. Okay, so that's a good indicator that some of these things are at play. And then the third one is basically somebody who has achieved everything in terms of like, I have my time freedom, maybe I have an exit, and now I just feel empty on the inside. It's kind of like I climbed this big mountain and the view is so depressing at the top. Okay. So those are kind of the three big buckets of the clients that I tend to work with that kind of like are ready to deal with this kind of stuff. So that's the first place that I would look at to determine objectively, okay, am I in this place? Okay, that's number one. And the second part of the question was, okay, well, what do I do about it? So it's not a linear process. It's a process of going through three different distinct stages. So the first stage is the assess stage. So I want to assess, okay, what are what I call those stress drivers, right? So there's 64 of them that negatively impact, like I said, your productivity, your delegation, and your peace of mind. It's actually the three core categories that you're going to need to operate as an effective CEO. Right? I got to go and delegate. I got to get stuff done. And my own state is the quality of how I get these things done. So first thing is to assess what are the stress drivers and what is the unique combination of them that affects you in these three categories. And then once you know what these are for you, right, we can change only what we can see. So now that we can see them, we go into what I call conflict resolution or conflict subtraction. So the idea here is most of the time you objectively know what you need to do, right? If I use the previous examples, like I know I need to like not do this task. I know I need to delegate. I know I need to call this person out, but I don't do it. Okay, well, that's an internal conflict between what you intellectually understand, you need to do, and what you emotionally feel is actually viable for you to do in this moment. Okay, and that constant conflict between your intellect and your emotion is generally going to be a conflict between like your conscious, your subconscious, and then your nervous system, which is kind of the third level that we do these conflict resolutions in. So we don't have to go into the specifics of that, but that essence of the reason I'm experiencing this hamster wheel is because there's a conflict inside. When you can resolve that conflict, and oftentimes these conflicts arise from way before you started the business, kind of like childhood. And this is where my work becomes more like a Dr. Phil to business owners, but that's why it's effective. Um, you now have a clean slate when you eliminate those internal conflicts. And from that clean slate, you get to the third stage, which is learning to embody what I call this archetype of being a peacefully ambitious CEO. So you spend a lifetime succeeding, being driven by stress. It's actually unfamiliar and weird to you to be fueled by peace, right? It's kind of like if I only understand what cold is, when I get into a hot climate, like it's weird. Like I don't get why, it's just I'm sweating all of the time. And I know it's like a silly example of it, but that's literally like if you've ever not been able to enjoy a vacation, you've felt guilty taking time off. It's like rest, I'll rest when I'm dead kind of mentality. It's like it actually feels threatening to the level of your unconscious, which I basically call your nervous system. It feels threatening to actually exist in this place of fear, or sorry, in this place of peace. And it doesn't matter that you can actually create more leverage that way. And everybody can test this because we've all had experiences where we got a lot of stuff done when we were inspired and we got a lot of stuff done when we were stressed out of our mind. It's like, which one's got the better quality of output? Generally, is going to be the inspiration. So, like, you already know what that is. You're just not used to it. And there's a process to actually embody living in that space, creating from that space. And that's why cumulatively that process, what I call like, you can't stress your way to peace. Like you have to actually eliminate the conflicts that create the stress, learn how to be in peace. And that's where you actually get to create all the stuff we talked about at the beginning, which is like using my business to be the vehicle to create the kind of life that money can't buy, right? That's really the essence of what I think a lot of entrepreneurs want, but they end up getting lost because oftentimes like we're not the people we need to be in order to get there. And that's fine. You can change that. So again, I know it's a long-winded answer to a seemingly
No,
simple
it's
question, but
beautiful.
that's kind of where it goes.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your insight. And I'd love to dive further into who you're working with, how you work with them, and really have a conversation around that. But before we get there, if folks are already interested in connecting with you and learning more, or just getting to know you better, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, so everything is at Peacefully Ambitious CEO. Like that's not just the archetype that I help people like move towards. It's the brand. It's kind of what I aspire to as well. So peacefullyambitiousceo.com, Peacefully Ambitious CEO on Instagram. If you want to listen to my podcast, so I do a live coaching podcast where I bring on entrepreneurs that have these issues. I coach them live on air. That's the Joyous Profits live coaching podcast. That's the only thing that's not Peacefully Ambitious CEO, but that would be the best way for people to find me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right. So I am interested about your podcast. You talked about where it is and how people can listen to it. Talk to me a little bit more about the experience that, like, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you invite me on your show to do coaching in front of who's going to listen to this. How do you prepare your entrepreneurs to come on the show with you and do this live session, if you will?
So I actually don't prepare them at all.
Okay.
And this is the reason why I say this. It's like I know my process really well. I know what I'm about. I know what needs to happen. And after 260 whatever episodes we're at now, it's like if you want to know what this process is like you can literally go find out. Like I don't need to answer any questions to you. So the way that it's set up with regards to like everything like if you want to be on it, like it is free, but everything's like lined up. So you will do the assessment that I talked about throughout this. You know, you're assessed for those 64 stress drivers. That gives me an idea of who you are coming into the actual podcast. And then from there, I just roll with it, right? Like there's no pre-script for coaching. So the reality is everything is out there for you to gauge yourself, whether or not you want to go through this process. It's actually been the primary way that I've gotten clients. So a percentage of those people that have been on the podcast have become clients because they enjoyed the experience. And if you look at my website, the majority of the case studies there are people that have been on the podcast as like the before, and you see the after, like we've worked together, like where they are right now. So when I actually started the podcast, like it was actually my girlfriend at the time, but she was like, "Yeah, you should probably do a podcast." I'm like, "No, I don't like. I actually prefer visuals. I don't really listen to a lot of stuff. It just like process visually better. Like I don't know if I should do this." And I was like, "Okay, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this differently." So my idea was, there's a sea of coaches everywhere. Everybody more or less says their version of the same thing. So like, how do you as the client discern, how to like, is this the person for me? I was like, okay, well, how do I lead with results up front? Like, how do I show you that I can do the thing that I tell you that I can do? And that basically birthed the coaching. I was like, okay, if I can get people on there, coach them, and they like it and they become clients, like there's something here. And for, almost where are we at, 3-4 years that I've been doing like this part actively, it's been the primary way that I've gotten clients, right? Because they've liked the experience, they got value out of it, and then they became clients afterwards. So long story short, that is the reason why I don't really filter for like, are you ready to do this? It's like, you can either make the decision as an adult of whether or not you want to do this.
Right.
And to be fair, like I've had people that have been like, listen, like I kind of want to do this, but like my brand is too established for me to like, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And I've done some private calls like that too, but it's just like, you get to decide whether this level of vulnerability and courage is right up your alley. And a lot of people do it for that reason. It's not just to, be on a live sales call. Like that's not what it's about. So yeah, long story short, they decide, I just do my thing.
Fantastic. By the way, I will put the link to his podcast show in the show notes. So point, click, and go take a listen. It sounds amazing. So I'm just thinking, as people who are we want to be successful. We want to do the right things. We want to grow a business. We want to support the people who are on our team. And we find this peaceful place. How do we keep the peace? Because as human beings, we tend to find this peaceful place and it's so amazing. And then we're looking for that stress again, right? Not on purpose, but our minds and our bodies are looking for that. Oh my goodness, something is missing, as you described it earlier, right? It feels uncomfortable to be in this peaceful place. So, how do we keep from falling back into those old habits after we've found peace?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Okay. The short answer is like, it's a practice. Okay. And then the longer, more nuanced answer is, you first things first want to distinguish. Actually, sorry, even if we kind of zoom out a little bit more. So the definition of peace. Okay. Most people will associate peace with like, I am on a mountaintop doing nothing but meditating for 10 hours a day. And then I go and I eat my one meal a day and then I sleep and then I do the same thing again. So it's like, peace is associated with like, I'm a monk. And then business is associated with like, I grind and I hustle. And there's very little kind of gray area that kind of collectively is like an automatic association. So to me, peace does not mean, I am in joy and fulfillment and bliss all of the time. Peace is very much just acceptance and enough. So meaning, I accept the reality that is here and I do enough to impact that reality and no more. Okay, so making that even more specific into business context, like building a business is hard. Like there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? If you take a different context, like running a marathon is super hard. You have to train, you have to run, you have to get through the moments that are like hard. Now, if I am running that marathon, if I'm building that business from a place of peace, that means I accept the necessary effort and the sensations that go along with that. And I do what I need to do to get through that and no more, right? So if I'm running the same marathon, I'm building the same business, and the success of that business means I'm good or bad as a person, I am enough or not enough as a person. Well, now I have added more than enough to what this thing actually is, because the business or the marathon does not actually determine my own worth. That is actually independent of anything external, right? So peace is actually just decreasing the additional weight we carry to do the hard thing, and we accept whatever comes with the hard thing. So it does not at all mean you are never going to have stressful days. You're never going to want to, throw this thing out the window or do all of that. It is what is the intention behind it? What is the energy behind it? Am I going through that stress to prove something, or to get away from my anxiety, or to get away from this bad scenario that I think is going to happen if I don't succeed or grow bigger? Okay, well, that means I'm always pushing away from a bad scenario. That's not very peaceful. That's stress driven. The whole idea here is I want to be pulled towards creating something that I feel like needs to exist in the world, that is going to power and fund the ideal life that I want to live. Like, that is more like an artist creating something because I want to see this thing exist in the world. So it's a much different energy to go through the necessary grind and stress of the actual business, right? So that's like the first thing, is kind of just making sure we're both talking about the same thing when we talk about peace. Because I have no interest in being a monk on the mountaintop. I very much want to be in the thick of it, doing all the things as well, right? Now, how do you sustain that over time? Well, like I said, the first stage is just we got to eliminate what drives the stress, right? Because you can't stress your way to peace. So that is the first thing, is like I got to look internally and eliminate those conflicts that are likely in there from childhood, from past woundings, from past experiences, to get to that clean slate. Once we get to that clean slate, then we can actually do the practices that create the peace, right? So a simple way to kind of think about this is, we all know that, appreciation, gratitude, affirmations are great. And we've all had the experience of like trying them out. We'd be like, this is bullshit because I don't really at all like feel this. I don't buy into it. I'm just doing it to check it off so I can get my 30 days of, gratitude thing going, right? So why? Well, because my body's actually not used to whatever the thing that you're saying. Like, it's not used to actually accepting that. And put a different way, it's like you're never going to be able to outdo what you currently believe. So if I don't fundamentally believe in my body, so subconsciously, unconsciously, that I'm worthy, yeah, like you can say probably like, millions of repetitions of like, I'm worthy, and you can potentially get there. I'm not at all saying, because we all learn through repetition. So it's a way to get to this, but I just found it's much faster and easier if you just learn the practices of adjusting your body and going through like this whole, we can get into it if you want, like the whole nervous system regulation and working through your emotions. If you know how to do that, if you know how to make that a practice, then that becomes the integrating piece that you can actually live more peacefully, because you've learned the skills of peace. Because so much of us are practiced in these skills and in the practices of stress. You got to learn the opposite. So basically, it becomes the equivalent of a lifestyle change for your identity, not just like this switch that I turn on and like suddenly we're here. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, by the way, for such an amazing conversation today. I know that the listeners are going to get so much out of what we've already talked about, and you may have to come back because, unfortunately, we're at the back end of our time today. It went by so fast. Tell me, as we close up today, one of your favorite client stories.
Yeah, so I think so. There's actually a case study of so his name's Hutton Henry on the website. If somebody wants to check out his conversation about this, so he initially came to me with a lot of the stuff that I've kind of already touched upon. Maybe not so much the worthiness and proving piece, but definitely the people pleasing piece. So he basically, at the time that we started working together, had this employee that was holding a major project hostage. And because of his history, et cetera, that, I don't need to necessarily get into, you can listen to it, but he had these like very big, real fears of confrontation. And he could never like be free of kind of the leaks that were happening, very much in profit. Like these are very actually real P&L leaks that were happening as a result of this project not finishing, not launching, etc. So our work together was actually going through his past, releasing the emotions associated with it, releasing a lot of the limiting beliefs he had around what it means to be affirmative, like firm in terms of like I'm staying firm to my decisions. A lot of the assertiveness pieces, a lot of the people pleasing pieces. And in releasing that, not only was he able to essentially eliminate this employee, which definitely needed to go, but he ended up transforming his business to be more a profitable lifestyle-based business. Because what he does is basically for tech companies that want to do like mergers and acquisitions, he goes in there and basically does the due diligence for them. So very, very technical type of work. Created like essentially a lifestyle business out of this, started moving out of debt, rekindled his love for DJing. Okay. And like literally just at this point, probably a few weeks ago, he basically did like a yacht Ibiza like tour of not tour, but like DJ set on there. He's from the UK, so if anybody knows the Ministry of Sound, that's like a famous club there. They end up playing like there. And now it's like he lives his life as what he calls like the highly paid creative, right? Like he's got his business and tech side, he's got his DJing side, he wants to get back into screenwriting. So it's like, this is what I say, like this is a life that money can't buy, right? Like you can't strategize your way into like re-invoking the love you had for DJing. Like that has to come from a internal permission to be like, no, this is the kind of life that I want to live. I need to become the kind of person that can hold this life. And I have all this stuff from my past that's creating stress and pushing me into this like should version of how I should run the business, right? So it's probably one of my favorites in terms of just like a broad 180 change of something that like we couldn't have foreseen when we actually started working together. But it just also encapsulates the beauty of like, this is his version of being a peacefully ambitious CEO. It's going to be different than somebody else who's like, I just want to operate better and without less stress. Cool. That's great because it's your vision of it. But yeah, that one, if anyone wants to check it out, you can see his podcast, you can see his case study, probably one of my favorites.
Wow, fantastic. I'm just thinking about, I've been writing a lot lately about having hard conversations, and it sounds like that's where the engagement started. So, for the listeners, if you are struggling in that space, then Drasko's the guy, right? You need to reach out to him. Again, tell us how folks can connect with you.
Yeah, so everything is Peacefully Ambitious CEO. Instagram is probably where I'm most responsive. You can check out the website, Peacefully Ambitious CEO. You'll see this whole process broken down there. You can see the before and after case studies. If you want to see what working with me is like, you can check out any of the 260 plus episodes that are on there. That's on the Joyous Profits Lab Coaching Podcast. But those would be the best ways to get in contact with me.
Fantastic. As always, I will put all of the links in the show notes. So if you're watching, not in your car, but sitting at your desk, you can point and click to get exactly where you want to go. Otherwise, you can catch us on all of our audio channels. Drasko, thank you so much for being with me today. This has been amazing.
Yeah, super fun. So thank you for having me on.
That's all the time we have for today. And if you found value in this conversation, please share it with a fellow entrepreneur, a veteran, or a Houston leader ready to grow. Be sure to follow, rate, and review the show. It helps us reach more bold business minds just like yours. Your business, your leadership, and your legacy are built one intentional step at a time. So stay inspired, stay focused, and keep building the business and the life you deserve.